By the time London reacted, it was already too late. Fire had reached street level. Church bells rang without pause, not to mark time, but to warn of disaster. People ran through smoke and heat, carrying whatever they could lift. Wooden houses fed the flames, one after another, until whole streets vanished. This was not a single fire. It was a city burning. Yet only days earlier there was no panic, no smoke in the sky, no bells of alarm. Just a crowded wooden city, unaware that it was about to be erased. Welcome back to Strolling to the Past. Today we return to London more than 3 centuries ago, to the year 1666. Before the fire, London was already an old city by European standards. Its streets had grown not by careful planning, but by habit and necessity. Narrow lanes, twisted between tall houses. Many buildings leaned toward each other, their upper floors almost touching above the street. Most homes were built from timber. Wooden beams, wooden walls, wooden roofs. Between them were stored hay, barrels of tar, oil, coal, and firewood. Open flames were part of daily life, candles, hearths, bakers' ovens. London was crowded. Inside the city walls lived nearly 500,000 people. Animals, carts, merchants, beggars, and sailors filled the streets. The summer of 1666 had been unusually dry. For weeks, almost no rain had fallen. Wood dried and cracked. Dust settled everywhere. On the evening of September 1st, nothing seemed unusual. The city went to sleep as it always did. No one knew that by morning, London would be burning. 17th century London had no modern fire service. There were no fire engines as we know them today. If a fire broke out, neighbours formed bucket lines, passing water hand to hand from wells or the river. Another common method was demolition, pulling down nearby buildings to stop the spread. This required fast decisions, and it required authority. The Lord Mayor of London had the power to order houses destroyed, but such decisions were costly and unpopular. Many hesitated, hoping fires would extinguish themselves. The streets were so narrow that fire could easily leap from roof to roof. Wind could push flames forward like a living thing. London, in 1666, was a city waiting for fire. Shortly after midnight on Sunday, September 2nd, a fire broke out in a bakery on Pudding Lane. The bakery belonged to Thomas Fariner, baker to the King's Navy. The fire likely started in the oven, left smouldering after the day's work. At first it seemed small. Fariner and his family tried to put it out. They failed. Flames climbed the wooden walls and reached the upper floors. Within minutes, the fire escaped the building. A strong east wind pushed the flames westward, deeper into the city. Neighbours ran into the streets. Bells rang. Cries of alarm echoed through the darkness. The Lord Mayor was called. He arrived, looked at the fire, and hesitated. He refused to order the surrounding houses torn down. According to later accounts, he dismissed the danger, saying it could be put out easily. That decision would cost the city dearly. By sunrise, the fire was no longer local. It had spread beyond Pudding Lane into Thames Street, where warehouses lined the river. These warehouses stored oil, wine, sugar, rope, and pitch. They burned violently. Explosions echoed as barrels burst. Flames leapt high into the air. The river, once a refuge, became a corridor of fire. Boats were loaded with people and possessions, fleeing downstream. The heat became unbearable. Stones cracked, iron melted. People tried to save what they could. Beds, chests, paintings, books, dragged into the streets or loaded onto carts. Many saved nothing. By nightfall, the fire formed its own wind, a firestorm. Attempts to stop it failed. Buckets dried before water could be thrown. Fire hooks were useless against walls already ablaze. London burned through the night. On Monday, September 3rd, the fire advanced rapidly. It reached the heart of the city. Markets, churches, and guild halls caught fire. People fled north and east, carrying bundles on their backs. Others collapsed from exhaustion and smoke. Looting began in some areas. Fear broke down order. The king, Charles II, took direct action. He ordered soldiers to assist and authorized the use of gunpowder to demolish buildings. Only now did large fire breaks begin to appear. But the wind still drove the flames. That evening, the fire reached St. Paul's Cathedral. Old St. Paul's Cathedral was one of the largest churches in Europe. Its stone walls were thought to be safe. Many people had stored their belongings inside, believing it would protect them. They were wrong. The wooden scaffolding around the building caught fire. The roof, made of timber and lead, ignited. Molten lead poured down into the streets. By morning, St. Paul's was a smoking ruin. Its destruction shocked the city. If even the cathedral could fall, nothing was safe. By Tuesday, September 4th, 1666, London had been burning for more than 48 hours. Large sections of the city were already destroyed. Entire neighborhoods had vanished overnight. That morning, a crucial change occurred. The strong east wind that had driven the fire began to weaken. For the first time since the fire began, the flames no longer surged forward with the same force. Smoke still filled the air, and fires still burned, but the city was no longer completely at the mercy of the wind. With this shift came a renewed effort to stop the fire. Under direct orders from King Charles II, soldiers and civilians began systematic demolitions. Houses were pulled down using long fire hooks. When that failed, gunpowder was used to blast buildings apart. The goal was simple: remove the fuel. Wide gaps were carved into the dense wooden city. Where once houses stood wall to wall, there were now empty, smoking spaces. These fire breaks finally began to work. By nightfall on Tuesday, the fire slowed significantly in several areas. It still burned fiercely in others, but for the first time, it could be contained. On Wednesday, September 5th, remaining fires were gradually brought under control. Small flare-ups continued, but the main body of the fire was dying. 4 days after it began, the Great Fire of London was over. What remained was devastation. When the smoke finally lifted, London was almost unrecognizable. More than 13,000 houses had been destroyed. Over 80 parish churches were gone. Markets, guild halls, and entire streets no longer existed. Most of the city of London lay in ashes. The destruction was not evenly spread. Some areas were completely erased, while others stood untouched just streets away. This uneven damage added to the shock. Official records listed surprisingly few deaths. However, historians have long questioned these numbers. The poor, the elderly, and the very young were rarely counted. Many lived in overcrowded areas that burned fastest. Their deaths may never have been recorded. What is certain is the scale of displacement. An estimated 70,000 to 80,000 people were left homeless. They had lost everything: homes, tools, furniture, and livelihoods. With nowhere to go, survivors fled the ruins. They gathered in open fields outside the city walls. Makeshift camps formed almost overnight. Families slept under cloth, salvaged wood, or the open sky. Winter was approaching. Food supplies were strained. Prices rose sharply. Disease spread easily among the crowded camps. Just 1 year earlier, London had suffered a deadly outbreak of plague. Now, weakened and exhausted, the city faced another crisis. In the weeks that followed, fear spread almost as fast as the fire itself. England was at war with the Dutch and the French. Foreigners were viewed with suspicion. Rumors claimed the fire was no accident. Some said it was sabotage. Others claimed it was part of a Catholic plot. Immigrants were attacked in the streets. Catholic communities were threatened. One man, Robert Hubert, confessed to starting the fire. He claimed he was acting as an agent of a foreign enemy. The confession was false. Hubert was not even in London when the fire began. Nevertheless, he was executed. Later investigations proved the confession impossible. But in moments of crisis, Fear often demands a scapegoat. The Great Fire left London not only physically broken, but deeply shaken. Despite chaos and uncertainty, rebuilding began almost immediately. There were bold plans to redesign London entirely. Architects proposed wide boulevards, orderly grids, and open squares. These plans promised a modern city, but they required time, money, and political unity, all in short supply. In the end, practical needs took priority. Most streets followed their old paths, property boundaries were restored. However, important changes were enforced. New building laws required houses to be built from brick or stone instead of wood. Thatched roofs were banned. Streets were widened where possible. Fire insurance companies emerged for the first time. To protect their investments, they formed private fire brigades. This marked the beginning of organised firefighting in London. Architects reshaped the skyline. Churches were rebuilt. A new St. Paul's Cathedral would rise in the decades to come. London would not look the same again. The Great Fire of London was a turning point. It exposed the dangers of medieval urban design, narrow streets, wooden buildings, and unchecked density. The disaster forced change. Modern fire prevention, building codes, and city planning trace part of their origins to the lessons learned in 1666. London did not disappear. It adapted. The fire destroyed the old city, but it also cleared the way for a safer one. When you walk through London today, you rarely see visible traces of the fire. But beneath the streets and buildings, the memory remains. Every brick wall, every widened street carries a lesson learned through destruction. The Great Fire was not just a disaster, it was a transformation. Thank you for strolling to the past. Until our next journey through history.